Hi, this is Aradhya. I'm representing Group 19. Today, my team members are Hema, Giridhar, and Nanda Kishore. We will be discussing assignment 7, ready material 7. Risk assessment of the additional works in railway construction investment using the Bayes network. That will be the topic for today. The railway infrastructure projects are complex projects characterized by the significant extensions of individual investment stages. Currently, a large EU project is being implemented in Poland, which improves the current railway network throughout the country. As part of this project, they have been modernizing 9,000 kilometers of railway lines as planned. Since this is huge plan, it has its own risk associated with it. Choosing the correct risk management strategies will minimize the negative effect of the risk and the guarantee the correctness of the project. There are many properties associated with the risk management, but the most important concept will be managed by the Project Management Institute and Institute of Civil Engineering. Regarding the methodology used for risk management strategies is based on standards provided in ISO 31000 2012 risk management principles and guidelines. Risk can be described in a formula called R equals FPZ. In this formula, R represents the risk and P is represent the responsibility of the certain event occurring, and C represent the impact of the event on the final effect of the implanted project. To determine the possibility of the certain event, we have to conduct quantitative and qualitative measurements. In this diagram, we'll be able to see the risk management process according to the ISO standards. There is some research related to individual stages of risk management process. There are few facts that depend on the amounts of the risk on many variables that includes type and the size of the project. The possibility of the occurrence of risk impact of the event depends on the specifics of the implemented legal conditions. There is much more researches related to the individual stage of risk management. Selection of the suitable mathematical models is important when risk assessment, among other multi-criteria methods, Bayesian network and fuzzy set approaches can be used. As the trust step context will be established, the context then establish the context, then risk identifications, risk analysis, risk evaluation. At last, we will do the risk treatment. Next topic will be framework models of the risk assessment method. In every step, represent a different procedure includes in the risk assessment. These steps should be carried out by the decision makers managing their risk in the enterprise. Usually, standards are not indicate the exact solution or method. It will be indicating only the directions for actions that could be taken to perform the risk management. Risk identification process is the process of documenting any risks that could be keep an organization or program from reaching its objectives. According to the ISO standards, management principles and guidelines that will be used as the benchmark of the procedures. According to the guidelines, risk assessment consists of three successive stages. First one is the risk identification. Second is the risk analysis. Third is the risk evaluation. In general, standards are not meant to indicate the precise solutions or methods, or standards usually provide the directions of actions that should be followed to reduce the risk of the project. Performing the comprehensive identification of all factors can be difficult, but according to the adapted methodology, the selected process should be performed as the comprehensive as possible. In order to access risk of additional works in the railway construction project, author used to structured and semi-structured interviews. In this diagram, we'll be able to see stages of the risk assessment and use methods. So as the first step, risk identification, we will be focusing on structure or the semi-structured interviews. Under risk analysis, we'll focus on Bayesian statistics and the Bayes nets. At last, the risk evaluation will be working on consequences and probability metrics. In order to evaluate this risk of the project, method will be selected based on the project. This includes the current stage of the knowledge regarding additional work that need to be done in the railway investment. Bayesian networks in the fields of artificial intelligence is derived from Bayesian statistic, which has Bayes theory as foundation layer. A Bayesian network consists of two modules called conditional probability in the quantitative model and the directed acyclic graphs in its quantitative modules. Risk identification in coordinates with the standards guidelines should include the following elements: determination of the risk, determination of the consequences, and determination of the possible scenarios. And here I will discuss identification of the risk of additional works in the railway project. By considering adapted assumptions, authors prepare a questionnaire with questions that allow the identification of the important parameters that describe the additional improvement that have been identified and need to be implemented. After creating the questionnaire, individual direct interviews were conducted with 5 participants in the construction process. Each response represented a different company, and those were chosen by the experience, seniority, and practice in managing and the implementation of the environment. Answers gathered from the interviews will be reused to describe the risk factors and quantitative descriptions of the emerging types of the additional construction work. From here onwards, my friend will continue. Thank you. Hey Nanda, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks, Adya. Hi, Giri. And coming to this, we have the two diagrams, that is risks based on the two types: appearance of additional works and the types of the additional works which are used, and their consequences and the possible scenarios. Understanding with the embarrassed suppositions, the creators arranged a poll with questions that consider the idea of the main boundaries depicting the resisting extra work in rail foundation development interest in Poland. The response were asked the accompanying. These are the main things that could be developed when we are doing the risks and the additional works. That is, kindly determine factors starting the making of extra works in railroad foundation development ventures and demonstrate likelihood of their event. And not only that, they should determine the sorts of development works that happen with the event of extra work in railroad foundation development speculations and demonstrate the likelihood of their event. And not only that, kindly indicate the 3 times span which are the most probable date for expanding the term of the rail line framework development project because of the extra works, and determine the likelihood of their event. And indicate the 3 sum ranges which are probably going to increment the monetary assessment that the financial backer should get for the execution of the railroad framework development project because of the extra work, and indicate likelihood of their event. And the results that got were introduced to a specialist with the longest rank and involvement with the execution of the rail line works. And not only that, who did not take part in the examination. At times the likelihood was not totally covered by the master's abstract appraisal. However, after investigation, this was thought of as defended and met with acknowledgement. It was chosen to utilize the cases to construct the proposed model, and the risk ID, as per the standard rules, ought to incorporate the accompanying components: assurance of dangers, assurance of results, and assurance of conceivable situations. The responses given by the respondents were gathered by the proposed conspire. Accordingly, these gatherings were acquired, which are introduced in Figure 3, and the gamble bunch was separated into takes a chance with connected with the presence of extra works and dangers connected with the event of person kind of extra works. Division of components into bunches finished the course of chance recognizable proof. And not only that, and we can see in the next slide that we can see in the next slide there is risk analysis, Bayesian statics, and the Bayes network method. For risk displaying, the Bayes network strategy was picked, which is by bill of all accounts the most fitting for the issue being referred to, because it depends on the likelihood of occasions of new data to the model utilizing master information or verifiable information. And the risk investigation was completed in 4 phases. And first one is the creating the hubs of the base organization, and second is the giving connections to the specific hubs, and third one is the assigning occasion probabilities, and fourth one is the performing estimations. And by using these four we can find out the things. And next, coming to the next slide, the creation of the nodes of the base network. Coming to the first one, for every one of the 9 chose risk appraisal factors practically equivalent to interaction of ascribing conceivable occasions was done, and the premise of the right design of the base network released to the assurance of the relationship of the individual hubs in the organization. Up to this point, the various methodologies have been utilized that rely upon numerous factors, not restricted to the attributes of the peculiarity, being complemented, information accessibility, and intricacy of the issues. Not only that, the issue that has not been concentrated prior to utilizing the base organization, so the creators have no essential organization that can be adjusted. The protection of the relationship of individual hubs depended on master information gotten from meetings, research, and the creators' own encounters. The connections will be utilized to look at the potential situations or outcomes of occasions happening during the time spent evaluating the gamble of extra works. And next, coming to this, the figure 6 base network model to access the risk of the additional works. And the uniqueness of the concentrated on issue requires the formation of a circuitous occasion on a base network as the extra works hub. This hub was proposed as discrete on the grounds that a significant setting of the work is decided to the event, or the other hand, non-attendance of the extra work. The occasion was displayed by interfacing the hubs comprising the gamble factors. Not only that, then the impacts of the presence of works as kind of industry works. The organization, these all has these all we can observe in the diagram as shown in the figure 6 also. And next, coming to the assigning the event probabilities. We can see in the diagram itself, it has the changes, errors of project documentation, changes by the investor, and the bad organization of the work occurs and does not occurs. In the figure 7 we can exactly see what is should be showing in the figure 7, and this requires the creators to dissect all the potential mixes of sequential occasions and decide their probabilities. For this reason, they are supposed to get the contingent likelihood tables. And next, coming to the uh, performing calculations. We can perform the calculations by using these probability formulas, and by using these formulas we can be able to find the certain values. After setting up the model, computations were completed, estimation of cognitive probabilities were performed utilizing the Netica programming. The consequence of the estimations is a working organization that can be utilized for the following phase of chance appraisal assessment. The organization after estimations along with the decided cognitive probabilities of occasions. By using these formulas we can calculate how much base can be converted into the base network, and by using the base network theorem of the Thomas base. And next, coming to this risk evaluation, building a risk assessment matrix. We can see the figures in this, and the use of the base organization is talked about. The issue permits the utilization of one kind of prospects of the numeral strategy, and not only that, individual variations are made by the determining contingent probabilities of choose hubs. It is feasible to dissect various degrees of occasion detail, and cognizant upon individual requirements, all potential situations of occasions can be dissected, or the key ones that greatest affect the presence of negative. As per the recently settled strategy, by seeing the above figures, we can observe at which levels the probability varies, at which point can be shown clearly in the above, and the last figure shows at which the effect of event occurs more at a low, medium, high. Most of the cases occurs in the high compared to the other events only. And next, coming to this event scenario analysis, we can see in the diagram that the risk factor which can be looked is the occurrence of project documentation errors. So this event is shown as the topic of the errors of documentation, project documentation. 100% chance was needed to look into the situation in the event called faculty. This figure shows what would happen if there was a problem with the documentation of the project. Project documentation errors will be examined as the potential source of the risk. The errors of project documentation list has its occurrence at the top. The faculty occurrence required 100% chance of investigation. A difficulty with the project documentation is shown in this scenario diagram. And from the next slide, my friend Giri will continue.
Thank you, Nanda. The modeling of an event has an effect on the whole network because the phenomenon can be studied in many ways. The authors choose to look at the effect shown in the node extension of time. A node called extension of implementation time was used to get the probability. Extending the implementation period to 3 months at the percentage level of 36%, and 40.7% increases in implementation time for 3 months to 6 months. 23.3% increase in the time it has to deploy over the course of 6 months. After giving points to the variance we talked about, the risk was calculated in accordance with the Formula 1 and put in the right cell on the risk assessment matrix. The above table shows the results of calculations and how each variant is ranked. The low risk level is from 2 to 5, and high risk level is from 11 to 29. And coming to the risk mitigation proposal, the best risk management strategy is chosen based on the number of factors, such as how likely it is that the project will meet its cost and time goals, how many possible methods of actions there are, and so on. It also indicates a response for each type of risk in the project, so that the actions that are taken are as effective as possible. The action plan that is chosen is the best one. The popular 5 strategies are the risk avoidance, risk transfer, risk mitigation, risk acceptance, and the emergency plan. It looks like there is a lot of risk if there are mistakes in the project documentation, which is what we talked about. According to the assumption, it's not a good idea to accept it. Based on the results, it can be assumed that the risk will not be avoided. The values are greater than all probability values are the greater than 0. Among the different ways to deal with risk, the authors choose one that they thought could be used in process of implementing a rail investment. This method of risk mitigation is one of the one that the authors think could be used. And coming to the summary, the authors used the standard algorithm to show one of the ways to make risk management strategies. This algorithm includes risk identification, risk analysis, and the risk assessment. The chosen scenario has a new method that is mostly based on the Bayes network. In this way, it is possible to build complex impact networks that can be used on the surveys, historical data, or accept opinions. Using a well-designed network, risk mitigation method can be put into place and the efforts on other network nodes can be studied. This is what happened in the event scenario that was talked about. Mitigators can be thought of as actions that make it less likely that risk factors will happen. Thank you.